August 2009. California.
911 emergency, what are you reporting?
Yeah, we're in a Lexus.
I'm sorry, your cell phone's cutting out.
We're going north 125.
Mm-hmm.
And our accelerator's stuck.
I'm sorry?
Our accelerator's stuck. We're on 125 and we're in break.
Okay, northbound 125, where are you passing?
We are passing, where are we passing? We're going 120, Mission Gorge. We're in trouble. There's no brakes.
Okay.
Gorge, end freeway, half-mile.
Okay, and you don't have the ability to, like, turn the vehicle off or anything?
We're approaching an intersection.
Okay.
We're approaching intersection. Hold on. Pray.
Okay.
Oh, shoot. Oh.
Okay. Hello?
Four people died. The vehicle involved was a Lexus ES 350, manufactured by Toyota. What began as an isolated accident became the starting point of a global crisis. Similar reports began to emerge. Drivers described vehicles that accelerated without command. The foot was removed from the pedal. The engine did not slow down. The brake was pressed. The distance to the vehicle ahead decreased. The acceleration continued. Between 2009 and 2011, more than 8 million vehicles were included in recalls related to the phenomenon of unintended acceleration. Federal investigations were opened in the United States. In 2014, Toyota agreed to pay $1.2 billion in a criminal settlement with the Department of Justice. The total impact of the crisis was estimated at more than $5 billion. In the official independent compensation program, 89 deaths were recognized as associated with the reports. The case was not merely a technical defect. It was a global crisis that questioned the trust placed in one of the most respected brands in the automotive industry. How can a vehicle accelerate without command? After the 2009 accident, the issue ceased to be merely individual. It became technical. The reports described a specific behavior. The vehicle accelerated without conscious command from the driver. The first hypothesis raised did not involve an electronic failure. It involved the driver's floor mat. In certain models, the mat could shift and trap the accelerator pedal in the depressed position. This condition was confirmed in some cases. In 2009, Toyota announced a recall related to the repositioning and proper securing of the floor mats. But the reports did not cease. A second hypothesis emerged. The pedal assembly itself could present internal mechanical friction. Under certain circumstances, the return of the pedal could be slower than expected. In 2010, Toyota announced a new recall, this time involving the pedal mechanism. Even so, the question persisted. What if the problem was not mechanical? What if it was within the electronic acceleration system? The vehicles involved used a drive-by-wire system. There was no physical cable between the pedal and the engine. The command was electronic. Sensors, control module, software. The hypothesis of electronic failure gained space in the public debate. But proving an intermittent failure in digital systems was not simple. The crisis ceased to be merely a recall. It became a technological investigation. As recalls related to floor mats and pedals were announced, a portion of the public debate moved in another direction. What if the problem was not on the floor of the vehicle, nor in the physical pedal mechanism? What if it was in the software? The models involved used an electronic acceleration control system. No mechanical cable. No direct physical connection between the pedal and the engine. The command was transmitted through sensors, processed by electronic modules, executed by software. The hypothesis of electronic failure began to be formally investigated. The United States regulatory agency, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, initiated in-depth technical analyses. Congress applied pressure. The media questioned. Independent experts raised concerns about possible intermittent failures within the digital system. In 2010, NASA was officially invited to participate in the analysis of Toyota's vehicle software. The involvement of the space agency expanded the scope of the investigation. It was no longer merely about automotive mechanics. It was about electronic architecture. Thousands of lines of code were examined. Failure scenarios were simulated. Extreme conditions were tested. The central question remained: was there an electronic defect capable of generating unintended acceleration? The official conclusion, later released, stated that no evidence was found of an electronic defect capable of causing unintended acceleration. The investigations indicated that confirmed cases were associated with floor mat interference or improper pedal application. But at that moment, public doubt had already been established. The crisis ceased to be merely about a component. It became about technological trust. As the technical investigations advanced, the crisis assumed another dimension. Toyota's public communication began to be questioned. U.S. authorities examined how the company had described the issue to consumers and regulators. In 2014, the United States Department of Justice announced a criminal settlement with Toyota Motor Corporation. According to authorities, the company had made incomplete or misleading statements about the nature of the defects related to acceleration. The agreement did not involve a formal admission of criminal guilt, but it included the payment of $1.2 billion, one of the largest criminal settlements ever applied to an automaker. The official document mentioned failures in communication with federal regulators and with the public. Internally, emails and memoranda were reviewed during the investigations. The issue was not only whether the vehicle accelerated on its own. It was how the company described the risk when confronted with the reports. Toyota stated that it cooperated with authorities and implemented changes in its safety and governance processes. But at that moment, the debate had already moved beyond engineering. It became a discussion about transparency, about responsibility, about trust. The crisis was no longer limited to the pedal. It had reached the institutional structure of the company. As the recalls expanded, the crisis ceased to be limited to the American market. Vehicles were recalled in Europe, in Asia, in China. In 2010, Toyota temporarily suspended the production and sale of certain models in the United States. The decision was unusual. One of the largest automakers in the world interrupting its own operations in one of its primary markets. The company's shares experienced a significant decline during the most intense period of the crisis. The brand, historically associated with reliability and precision, began to face public questioning about safety and transparency. The total financial impact was estimated at more than $5 billion, considering recalls, settlements, fines, and associated losses. But the impact was not only financial, it was reputational, it was institutional. The crisis was no longer confined to the pedal, nor to the software, nor to the floor mat. It had reached the company's leadership. And before structural reforms were implemented, there was a decisive moment. A moment when the crisis ceased to be technical and became political. In February 2010, Akio Toyoda, president of Toyota Motor Corporation and grandson of the company's founder, was summoned to testify before the United States Congress. It was an unusual moment. A Japanese executive, representing one of the largest automakers in the world, being publicly questioned about vehicle safety on American soil. Before the lawmakers, Toyota stated that the company had grown rapidly in the preceding years, and that, in that process, priority and global expansion may have overtaken attention to quality. The statement marked a turning point. It was no longer merely a technical discussion. It was a public acknowledgement of institutional vulnerability. During the most intense period of the crisis, Toyota announced the creation of new global committees for quality and safety. It expanded the autonomy of regional executives for recall decisions. It revised rapid response protocols. It restructured internal channels for reporting defects. The episode led to the centralization of global safety data and to expanded executive oversight over electronic systems. The crisis also accelerated broader discussions about the increasing complexity of modern vehicles. Embedded software, digital architecture, dependence on sensors. The case became a reference point in the automotive industry's transition to an era in which mechanical engineering and electronic systems became inseparable. What began as an isolated report of loss of control ended as a global test of corporate governance. And at that moment, the question was no longer merely, does the vehicle accelerate on its own? But rather, how does a global organization respond when trust is placed in doubt? The Toyota unintended acceleration crisis did not merely redefine a recall, it redefined an era. Until then, automotive engineering was perceived as essentially mechanical. Engines, cables, gears, physical components. But throughout the 2000s, vehicles became digital systems on wheels. Sensors replaced physical connections. Software began to mediate human commands. Decisions ceased to be purely mechanical. They became electronic. The crisis exposed a silent transition. When control is no longer visible, trust begins to depend on invisible layers of code. The case demonstrated that, in complex technological environments, the perception of risk can be as decisive as a confirmed failure. Even after the technical investigations, even after the recalls, even after the legal settlements, public debate did not end. Because the question was not only about a pedal, it was about systems, about digital architecture, about responsibility within highly complex global structures. The crisis marked a moment when the automotive industry had to recognize that quality is not merely manufacturing. It is continuous monitoring. It is immediate response. It is transparency under pressure. Unintended acceleration was not merely a regulatory event. It was a historical dividing line in the integration between mechanical engineering and digital governance. The pedal ceased to be merely a component. It became a symbol of the transition to a new generation of vehicles. Subscribe to this channel to follow the next documented case.